Bighorn sheep are an iconic symbol of the western United States. One word that best describes a bighorn sheep is strength. One word that best describes sheep hunters is dedication. Sheep hunting requires a great deal of effort. A very small notch on the side of a sheep tag signifies a very large effort made on the side of a mountain. Years of anticipation finally comes down to a split second that separates dreams from reality.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Magnificent animal. It's a hunt of a lifetime.
Nice. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Nice.
Hi, I'm Gray Thornton, the President and CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation, the premier organization working for the betterment of wild sheep and their habitat. The Sheep Foundation was formed in the late 1970s when some concerned hunters and conservationists were watching the plight of particularly bighorns in North America. When Lewis and Clark made their way west, wild sheep and bighorns were one of the most numerous animals in North America. Conflict with domestic sheep, overharvest by non-regulated hunting, reduced the numbers from about 1.2 to 2 million back in the 17 and 1800s to less than 25,000 bighorn sheep in North America in the 1960s and the late 1970s. Through the efforts of Wild Sheep Foundation and our chapters and affiliates and concerned hunters and concerned conservationists, we have increased those numbers threefold to more than 80,000 bighorn sheep in North America. In the 1970s, hunters answered the call for wild sheep and formed the Wild Sheep Foundation. Our efforts then were to put wild sheep back on the mountain. Today, not only putting sheep, but keeping them there is our focus. Hunters are the solution. More than 70% of all conservation dollars in North America are funded by hunters and anglers. You want to do something for wild sheep? Buy a hunting license. You want to do something for fish? Buy a fishing license. Support wildlife conservation by supporting the hunters and anglers that were the first and foremost and remain the premier conservationists in North America.
The Best of the West is brought to you by Coeur d'Alene Sporting Goods, the Wild Sheep Foundation, Kryptek Camo, the Best of the West Shooting Systems, Defiance Custom Actions, Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable, Husqvarna Optics Canada, and LongRangeStore.com.
There's an adage in North America that says that if it pays, it stays. The North American wildlife conservation model, one of the most critical and important and effective wildlife conservation models in the world, shows that if wildlife has value, it will stay. Bighorn sheep, unfortunately, and thinhorn sheep as well, don't pay their way. Wild sheep licenses and tags only account for about 0.5% of Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks or the Wyoming Game and Fish annual budget. Bottom line, without organizations like the Wild Sheep Foundation, without hunters getting involved, without hunter dollars, bighorn sheep would not pay their way. The dramatic and threefold increase in bighorn sheep did not happen by accident. Since the 1940s, more than 20,000 bighorn sheep have been translocated in over 1,400 actions. How does that happen? Organizations like the Wild Sheep Foundation and our chapters and affiliates throughout North America raise the money at annual conventions and banquets to put sheep on the mountain. It costs about $4,700 to put one sheep with a GPS collar back on the mountain. That expense takes money. The Wild Sheep Foundation annual convention brings thousands of sheep enthusiasts and hunters from around the world to Reno, Nevada each year to raise money for wild sheep, their habitat, and other wildlife. Last year alone, the Wild Sheep Foundation raised and directed more than $4.3 million on the mountain for wild sheep conservation and other mission programs. That equates to more than $795 for every Sheep Foundation member, an incredible metric that, quite frankly, I think is unheard of in our industry. The Wild Sheep Foundation has more than 20 chapters and affiliates throughout North America and the world. Those organizations really are the on-the-ground backbone of our conservation efforts, providing thousands of man-hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars to repatriate and protect sheep in their regions. Excellent example are our friends in Nevada, the Fraternity of the Desert Bighorn and Nevada Bighorns Unlimited. Nevada boasts more than 11,000 bighorn sheep. California, Rocky Mountain, and Desert, more than any other state in the lower 48. How do they have those? They have those due to the efforts of the Fraternity and Nevada Bighorns, who go out each weekend building water projects for not only sheep, but all wildlife.
Hi, my name is Chris Cefalu. I'm with Nevada Bighorns Unlimited, NBU. And we're here today capturing Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep for monitoring purposes, collars, ear tags, administering antibiotics. This is a wellness check. We're working with the Nevada Department of Wildlife. NBU and NDOW work closely together for Nevada Wildlife. And NBU's organization is in our 35th year. We have our annual banquet every year, which is our main source of revenue. And you know, every year we take that money and we put that money here on the ground in Nevada. It's all local money that stays local for Nevada Wildlife. NBU is a nonprofit, all volunteer organization, no one on the payroll. Everything we do is a volunteer. We have a very large volunteer base that we pick from to come on projects like this. We do water development, heavily into water development for guzzlers all over the state. The state has over 1,700 guzzlers. I joined NBU 13 years ago and started going to the banquets and saw what NBU was doing and how they worked with our local and state government to support wildlife. And a year and a half ago, I had the honor of joining the board of NBU, and I've done so. It's my way of giving back, and I believe and feel strongly that that's why all our volunteers are here, why they show up in such force. It's our way of giving back without our pocketbooks, but with our time. It's a passion that runs deep. When you finish a project like this, a trap and a transplant, or a monitoring program like we're doing today, or a guzzler build, you know, I've told people when you're on the way home, when you're finished and you've worked hard all day and you've sweat and been pounding stakes and digging holes, you have a feeling of you did something right for wildlife. You've put something on the ground that's a legacy that you've left with your volunteer time and with your hours that you've spent. That is the reason I've gotten involved. I've gotten involved for the sheer passion of wildlife and knowing that what we're doing is bettering the state and it's bettering the animals.
What is the largest threat to both bighorn and thinhorn sheep? The answer when we return to Best of the West. Domestic sheep and goats harbor pathogens deadly to wild sheep. Irrefutable scientific evidence concludes that direct contact between domestic sheep and goats and wild sheep has caused die-offs, including all-age die-offs, and reduced or zero recruitment of new lambs. The only known solution is separation of domestic and wild sheep on Wild Sheep Range. Bighorn sheep in North America once numbered in the millions and then dropped dramatically to about 25,000 by the 1960s and 1970s. The primary reason for that drop was contact with domestic sheep and goat in Wild Sheep Range. Domestic sheep and goats harbor pathogens that are deadly to wild sheep, causing pneumonic responses, all-age die-off, and low lamb recruitment for many, many years after contact has occurred. The Wild Sheep Foundation works with government agencies, both federal, local, and our state game and fish agencies to work on solutions to separate the two species. The bottom line is domestic sheep and wild sheep cannot occupy the same acre. The Wild Sheep Foundation is a multiple-use organization, but we also recognize that not every use is compatible on each and every acre. Wild Sheep Foundation works with state fish and game agencies, federal agencies such as the National Park Service, National Forest Service, and the Bureau of Land Management to work on solutions to keep the two species separated. It's critical for the health of bighorn sheep and wild sheep North American-wide that we keep domestic sheep and goats out of their range.
My name's Caleb McAdoo. I'm a wildlife biologist for the Nevada Department of Wildlife. I work out of Elko, Nevada. Work in the Ruby Mountains and East Humboldt ranges primarily. Behind me here is the East Humboldt range where we've been conducting multiple capture operations. What we're doing out here, yesterday we started in capturing Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. This project is something we initiated. Really, it started in 2009 when these sheep unfortunately died from a pneumonia disease event. And through that process, we've been monitoring them, collecting samples, monitoring the disease event. And actually in 2012, we removed the animals here out of the East Humboldt range, removed the sheep, the remaining diseased sheep, and brought in some new bighorn sheep out of Alberta, Canada. And we released a complement of 20 sheep, 17 ewes and 3 rams. And these sheep have now survived, and there's over 40 sheep on the mountain as a result of that release. Through that effort, we intend to continue monitoring, which is what we're doing out here today. More specifically, we're looking at collecting blood, we're looking at body condition, we're going to ear tag the animals, we'll be placing satellite and VHF transmitting collars, which will allow us to monitor these animals for years to come. As the Nevada Department of Wildlife, a lot of what we do is really crucial with our partnerships, and we have multiple partnerships with several sportsmen's groups such as Nevada Bighorns Unlimited Reno, Elko Bighorns Unlimited, and Northern Nevada Chapter Safari Club International, and several others that really make this project and projects like this possible. They contribute thousands of volunteer hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars to further our abilities to manage wild sheep. We've had a very large effort here the last 2 days from these groups, volunteer effort, guys driving over 1,000 miles just to be here and partake and help us out. So it's really critical to our success on the mountain. Myself, growing up as an avid outdoorsman, hunter, fisherman, just seeing the North American model for wildlife conservation and being able to see the involvement that hunters are able to have in conserving species and maintaining populations while still using those populations and using the resources that are out there. It's really what inspired me to pursue this field. And in my tenure at the Department of Wildlife, I've really been able to be involved in a lot of great activities on the ground. Some of the most rewarding things that we do are reintroducing native populations of sheep that were extirpated in the early 1900s, and it's a very rewarding task to bring those animals back and put them out on the mountain, and that's really what fuels my fire to be a biologist.
What can you do to help wild sheep? The answer when we return to Best of the West.
The Best of the West is brought to you by Coeur Lane Sporting Goods, the Wild Sheep Foundation, Kryptek Camo, the Best of the West Shooting Systems, Defiance Custom Actions, Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable, Husqvarna Optics Canada, and LongRangeStore.com. For more information about the Wild Sheep Foundation and how to get involved, please visit www.wildsheepfoundation.org. For more information about the products and gear used on today's show, please visit LongRangeStore.com or call 1-866-754-7618.
Educate yourself and others, including political leaders, on the disease issue and the need for separation between wild and domestic sheep. And join and support organizations like the Wild Sheep Foundation and our local and regional chapters and affiliates. The Wild Sheep Foundation Annual Convention in Reno is a great place to come and support wild sheep and meet with other wild sheep hunters and sheep conservationists. We also have banquets throughout North America where we can go, buy raffle tickets, bid on auction items, have a great time, and support the wild sheep resource. Why are we so passionate about wild sheep? I've hunted throughout North America and the world, but I hadn't hunted sheep. When I took my first Dall's ram in 2013 in Alaska, frankly, I cried like a baby. The effort that it takes, the training that it takes, the challenge that it takes, burning lungs, the burning legs. When you see that animal in just pristine mountain monarch environments, it does something to you. After I took that first sheep, I said, I get it now. I understand. I know why we're so passionate. I know why we work so hard for these iconic species. Let's work together for wild sheep, for all generations to enjoy. In the 1970s, hunters answered the call and formed the Wild Sheep Foundation and put sheep back on the mountain. Today, our efforts not only are putting them there, but keeping them there. I urge you to join the Wild Sheep Foundation and support our mission to put and keep wild sheep on the mountain.